So let's talk about the polls, of course. I just want to preface with this question from Charles Altman because I think it's something on everybody's minds. He says, if the mainstream media lies about everything else, how can we have trust that the polls are even remotely correct or close?
Okay, great. Excellent question. Absolutely. And that's why we go to aggregates. So the aggregates are going to be the averaged out polling from the liars, because I think NBC was lying up to this point. Their weight and measure technique was obviously skewed towards Biden. The Economist, horrible. They're just, I mean, their polls are embarrassing. We saw it right before New Hampshire. Who was it that did it? I don't want to say the name if I can't remember. It was some outlet that just out of nowhere gave like Nikki Haley this. She was either tied or leading Trump going into New Hampshire for the primary. And pollsters, real good polls like Rich Barris, People's Pundit, they were like that. And there was no crosstabs. There was no methodology, nothing. It was just the numbers. It said this was bought and paid for by the Nikki Haley campaign. It's just a lot. So it's not even the media. It's actually the candidates themselves that will spend millions of dollars just to lie to your face. So what you have to do is you have to corroborate. You have to look at multiple polls from multiple different outlets using different methodologies and the like. And you should know straight out, most polling firms they bend left. They lean left. They're good though. They're generally very good. But they'll be the ones who will ask, will you vote for Trump if he's convicted of a felony, which is just a leading question because you're basically asking the person feels like they're going to be morally judged if they say, sure, of course, I have no problem with that. Maybe that silence behind the polls. Oh, okay. So it creates what's called, a response bias where it's a leading question that wants you to answer in the negative, that kind of stuff. So they do that.
But first, how many UFC fans do we have out there? We know that the one and only Donald Trump is a huge UFC fan, as are the fighters of him. But have you ever wondered what they do to manage their pain? Well, you don't have to, because a fellow patriot and good friend to this channel is precisely the one who provides relief to that pain, and he's here to do the same for you. Gang, as we age, aches and pains we think of are normal, but they don't have to be. And that's where the groundbreaking medical scientist Clint Winters comes in. You've seen Clint on Fox. You've seen him on this channel. He's a world-renowned health expert who's unveiled a natural pain reliever that's taking the world by storm. It's called CB2. It's the 100% drug-free way to get full-body pain relief without dangerous meds, and it's the official pain reliever for the fighters in the UFC. And the best news, CB2 has no documented side effects after years of private testing. It's absolutely the future of relief. So whatever you do, make sure to click on that link below and check out Clint's amazingly informative report on how CB2 is changing lives by providing safe and powerful relief at a fraction of the cost of pain pills. Click on that link below right now.
But by the same token, we have the track record of all of the different polling outlets going to elections from, way back, 1980s, 1990s. Polling was still pretty unsophisticated back then. Started getting really sophisticated, if I recall, around 2010, 2012. It was really starting to do pretty well. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to find amidst these very different pollsters and outlets from different organizations and published by different media groups, you're trying to see if you can find a pattern there. You're trying to see if you can find a norm there. And that norm tends to come out in what's called the aggregate, when you just average out all the polls. So you're going to have some that skew way to the left. You might have a couple that skew way to the right. But generally speaking, you're going to get a pretty good sense of where things are. So the Real Clear aggregate gave Biden, if I recall, 7-point lead the day before 2020 election. and then he quote won with 4%. So obviously the polls were very skewed to Biden. I think obviously good, 3%, 4%, 5, 6, whatever you want, was just complete garbage. Those were fraudulent votes. So the polls were pretty off there, I think, generally speaking. But there were other ones that were much closer. If I recall, Rasmussen actually got them very, very close, Biden and Trump. So you just look at which ones. Trafalgar, I think, did a pretty good job, particularly in individual states, the battleground states. They tend to specialize in local polling. And then I have a pollster that I trust because I've seen the way he makes the sausage, and that's Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. He is the best. I mean, he is brilliant. I've seen him poll individual states. I've seen his methodology. He's one of us. He's a MAGA populist, and he's brilliant. He's the one. I don't know if you recall. I don't know how long you've been with us. He's the one who called. He predicted that Glenn Youngkin would win Virginia by about 2 points, and he predicted virtually every single county and how it was going to vote, and the margins and all of it. I mean, again, it was brilliant. And he was up to like 3 a.m. and he was just so excited because the polling efforts that he spent months gathering in terms of the data were right on. So I have somebody who I trust who tells me which polls don't even pay attention to. They're just a bunch of left-wing nuts, and which polls to give some attention to. But then in the end, they all do tend to balance themselves out in the aggregate. And he's a big fan of the RCP aggregate as just a general guide. So there you go. So yes, they lie. Yes, and they will do some bizarre antics like the New York Times. Rich was talking about this. The New York Times apparently spiked a poll. Now, the New York Times, 2 months ago, 2.5, 3 months ago, showed they hired a polling outlet that showed that Trump had a 10-point lead. They had to distance themselves from that polling outlet, but I guess they had signed a contract. I don't know what. Same polling outlet gave them their poll a few weeks back. They asked every question under the sun that they published. Who are you voting for in the primaries? Who do you trust with the economy? Who do you trust with the border? Job approval, everything. The one question that wasn't on there was, who are you voting for in the general? That's the one question. And it is inconceivable that this polling outlet would have asked every question on the sun and not, so who are you voting for? Inconceivable. The New York Times didn't print who you're voting for. They printed everything else, and it was radically pro-Trump. And Rich, and he knows the industry and he knows what goes on generally behind the scenes. Rich thinks Trump is up. That poll had Trump probably up around 13 or 14 points. So there you go. They lie by commission as well as omission. But there's a way to be able to cut through a lot of those lies.
I hope you enjoyed that clip of my Monday night Insiders Club live stream. Join us live next week by clicking on the link in the description below and joining the coalition of patriots worldwide building a parallel economy to return to our roots of faith, family, and freedom. Click below right now.